I was 10 when my older sister Abigail at the time started flipping our parents' view of me. She didn't scream, fight, or accuse directly. She whispered, gently suggested, hinted at things when no one else was around. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but things started shifting slowly. Our parents started seeing me differently, less reliable, more reactive. And Abigail? She became their perfect little angel. She was always so calm, so composed. Meanwhile, I was louder, more open, always quick to speak when something felt unfair. It didn't take long before I realized being expressive just gave her the opening to paint me as unstable. If something went missing, I was accused of being careless. If there was noise in the night, I was probably snooping around. If there was tension in the room, it had to be because I had another outburst. One day, Abigail spilled red nail polish on our mom's favorite white rug in the living room. I remember walking in and seeing the bottle on the floor and her looking shocked, but not surprised. Before I could ask what happened, she was already crying and mumbling my name. Mom came running in. The second I opened my mouth to explain, they told me to stop lying. I was grounded for 2 weeks. Abigail got ice cream that night because she'd had such a rough day. I liked to sketch and write lyrics in my notebooks. It was my way of escaping. Abigail used to sneak into my room and find something wrong with what I had written. She'd show it to our parents and act worried, saying I was writing about hurting people or being dark and negative. I got scolded for being inappropriate, for feeding toxic emotions. One time, I got banned from music for a month because she claimed I was listening to things that glorified destruction. I hadn't even played those songs. She made it all up, but always seemed so sincere. Then came the attic incident. I broke my ankle falling from the ladder. I'd gone up there because Abigail told me she left her sketch pad and begged me to get it before our parents saw it, said it had private stuff in it. But when I told them why I'd gone up, she said she never asked me to. Said I probably went up there for snacks. She acted like I was lying, and they believed her again. After that, they installed cameras in shared spaces for safety. Abigail learned how to turn them off before doing anything sneaky. I didn't. So every time something happened, someone spilled juice, someone left the fridge open, someone left muddy shoes inside, I got caught on camera reacting to it or walking into the room after. She never got recorded doing anything. School wasn't a break either. I started getting pulled aside by teachers about inappropriate emails they were receiving from my school account. One accused me of calling her a slur. Another said I'd threatened to report her for harassment. I was confused and scared. I hadn't written a single one, but the emails were coming from a Gmail account made to look like mine. I tried to explain, but they didn't believe me. A few months later, I learned from a classmate that Abigail had been on a school computer during aftercare. She'd logged into an anonymous email and bragged that she knew how to stir the pot without fingerprints. Bit by bit, my reputation crumbled. At school and at home, I was the moody, disrespectful, difficult daughter. Abigail? She was the calm in the storm, the role model. Even when I did well, it got brushed off. Even when I didn't do anything wrong, there was always suspicion. Then one day when I was 13, I came downstairs and saw a letter on the kitchen counter addressed to me. It was from a boarding school, congratulating me on my acceptance. I had never applied. I hadn't even heard of it before. I waited until both my parents got home and asked them what it was. They told me it was a program meant to help kids like me grow in a structured environment. That they'd talked to the school counselor. That they decided I needed a fresh start. Abigail stood there, eyes wide, acting heartbroken. She said she just wanted what was best for me. That she was scared for my mental health. She held Mom's hand and said she missed the old me and hoped this would bring her back. My parents nodded. That night, they told me to start packing. 3 states away, no warning, no conversation, just a suitcase and a list of rules. I left at the end of that summer. Abigail didn't even look sad. She moved into my room the day I left. Changed everything, new curtains, candles, pillows. I saw the photos later. She posted them on her blog. My bed, my desk, my wall art, all gone. On the train to school, I sat staring out the window, gripping a notebook I'd snuck out with me. It was one of the few things that still felt like mine. And in that moment, I made a decision. I was done explaining myself. If they wanted a villain, I'd become one, but not in the way they expected. I wouldn't scream or break things or fight to be seen. I'd become exactly who Abigail made me out to be, only smarter, only sharper. And this time, I'd be the one pulling the strings. The day I stepped into boarding school at 13, I didn't cry, argue, or cause a scene. I unpacked my bag, made my bed, and stayed quiet. I watched everyone. Teachers, dorm monitors, classmates. I didn't care about making friends or fitting in. I wanted order. I wanted to know how things worked so I could move through it without anyone noticing until I wanted them to. By the end of the first month, I had already mapped the system. The head of dorm life was a senior named Brenna who played tennis and had a cousin on the board. Her roommate, Carla, a junior, was the one who handled unofficial matters, schedules, shared printers, extra food. I offered to help Carla edit some of her essays. She passed them with full marks. After that, she introduced me around like I was a useful tool. She didn't know I was also studying her. I didn't speak unless necessary, but my grades started showing up at the top of the board, especially in English and art. I never talked about them. I just handed things in early and moved on. Teachers started using my work as examples. My name became quiet currency. People stopped asking if I wanted to hang out. They started asking if I could look over their projects or help with presentations. I didn't say yes to everyone. By my second year, I was known for being calm, cold, and exact. I helped people out if it was useful. A roommate once needed advice after getting caught breaking curfew. I helped her reframe the story, draft an apology email, and she avoided detention. Word spread. I created an anonymous email account using a school-safe alias and started running a student advice channel. People submitted questions. I replied with precise instructions. I learned about crushes, rivalries, grades, hidden tensions between dorm staff and students. I never signed my name. Back home, Abigail was busy being the face of success. My parents forwarded emails about her awards. One was a scholarship tied to leadership potential. She got student council president. Local news even did a feature on her charity bake sale. My name never came up. When my parents called, they asked if I needed anything. They used the same tone hotel receptionists use. Oh, distant. They asked about the food, the weather, never about me. Holidays came and went. I stayed back on campus, claimed I was helping with admin or volunteering. Sometimes I went to Carla's place. No one asked why I didn't go home. They just wired over money and told me to use it for travel. I left it untouched. I wasn't about to take their guilt money. On my 16th birthday, I got a card. It had Abigail's handwriting and a printed out selfie of her with my parents at dinner. They were all smiling. Her note said, "Glad you're finally finding balance. We're proud of you." I pinned that photo inside my locker, not for sentiment, for documentation. Every time I saw it, I remembered exactly who I was becoming. That summer, I was accepted into a design internship program run by a graduate from our school. It was competitive. Only 6 students from the state made the cut. I worked at a firm where I learned how to digitize artwork, layer designs with protection, and build clean visual identity packages. They showed me how to embed metadata, how to timestamp every file, and how to track the original source of art. I soaked it all in. Back at school for my final year, I took on 2 subjects as independent study. It gave me freedom, more time to build a digital portfolio and less time stuck in group projects. I crafted a silent strategy, one I didn't write down, but followed step by step. Meanwhile, Abigail had launched a digital product line. Journals, habit trackers, printable templates. The branding looked polished. Her fonts were neat, her icons simple and aesthetic. But I noticed something. One of her designs looked like a doodle I had done in 7th grade, a lopsided teacup with swirling steam that formed leaves. I remembered the exact sketch. Another design used a mood tracker layout I drafted in my old notebooks, down to the phrasing, mood mosaic. It wasn't just coincidence. It was a pattern. I didn't react publicly. I just started watching more closely. I followed her brand's social accounts from burner profiles. I tracked every file she released. Some of the design elements weren't even modified. She'd scanned my ideas, cleaned them up, and passed them off as her own. That was the final push. I decided to go home for winter break, not to celebrate or reconnect. I wanted to walk through the house she claimed, the room she stole, the brand she built using my stolen foundation. I didn't tell them why. I informed them I was planning to come home. My parents replied like I'd won a spelling bee. They were thrilled I was finally doing better. They said they'd get my room ready. I didn't correct them. Abigail didn't know I was coming. That was the point. I wanted to see the cracks up close. I wasn't going home to belong again. I was going home to study the scene of the crime. A month before winter break, I sent a short email to my parents saying I was thinking of coming home. They responded the same day. They were excited, said the timing was perfect, and told me they'd make sure everything was ready. I didn't say much after that, just booked my ticket and kept the details vague. The house felt smaller when I arrived, like someone had polished it too clean. Abigail wasn't there the first evening. Apparently she had rehearsals for a charity performance. I unpacked in the guest room. My old room was gone. In its place was a yoga studio, lavender walls, foam rollers, and a diffuser on the dresser. I was told the mattress in the guest room was better for my back anyway. Every wall in the house was covered with framed certificates, event photos, and articles. All Abigail. School awards, club photos, a snapshot of her shaking hands with the mayor at some community fundraiser. None of my childhood art remained. Not even a photo of us together. Just her in perfect lighting, at every age. I didn't ask where my things were. I asked about the renovations, about how work had been for them, about Abigail's new projects. I didn't bring up my own school. I didn't mention my internship. I smiled and nodded and kept track of everything they said. The way they described her latest journal launch. How proud they were of her being asked to speak at a women's business panel. I let them talk. 2 nights in, Abigail came home. She walked in like she owned the place, wearing a pastel sweater and holding matcha in a mason jar. She smiled big, hugged me like we hadn't spoken in years, and gave a quick glance toward our mom, like she was making sure she got credit for being warm. At dinner, she brought up her store, said she'd been experimenting with new packaging, and was thinking about rebranding. She asked if I wanted to give feedback, maybe look through her current folders and give suggestions. I told her I'd love to. She showed me a few files from her design folder the next morning. It had folders labeled Spring Collection, affirmation cards, and weekly tracker concepts. I opened one. My heart didn't race. My breathing didn't change. I just started clicking through. One file was a mood tracker with identical layout and wording to one I made in 8th grade. Another was a journal cover I doodled in the margins of an old math notebook. Same floral swirl, same phrase in the same spot. There were dozens. Some she traced exactly. Others she'd modified slightly, changed a font, tweaked a color, but they were mine. She had turned my ideas into polished products, filed them under her logo, and uploaded them to her storefront. They were being sold, reviewed, and even featured in small business roundups. My name was nowhere. There was no credit, no reference, no sign she hadn't built them from scratch. I downloaded everything. Backups of every design, screenshots with metadata, email chains showing timestamps, the shared drive links, the download logs. I stored them in 3 different places. Then I emailed my mentor from the summer internship and attached a few of the samples with comparison sheets. She replied within an hour and directed me to a copyright specialist who offered free consultations for students. The next morning, I met Abigail in the kitchen. She asked what I thought of the designs. I told her they looked very clean. She smiled. I asked if she had a brand book or design system I could peek at. She showed me another folder on her laptop. I downloaded that one too. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just smiled back, complimented her layout choices, and asked what printer she used for the stickers. I let her explain. I played along. For the rest of the week, I acted like I was grateful to be home. I offered to help with dishes. I complimented the food. I asked about their weekend plans. I mentioned how peaceful the house was, how nice it was to be around family again. Abigail gave me a holiday gift bag with one of her notebooks inside. It had a cover I'd once sketched in pencil on a cafeteria napkin. She added gold foil and a ribbon bookmark. And told me she thought I'd like it. I thanked her and put it in my bag. I left a day earlier than planned. Told them I had school projects to prep for and needed to get a head start. My parents wished me good luck and said they were proud of the progress I was making. Abigail waved from the porch. I got on the train and took the same seat I had taken years earlier when they first sent me away. This time, I wasn't alone. I had 2 flash drives, 3 cloud backups, and a plan. Abigail had built a business on top of my stolen notebooks, my forgotten sketches, and my erased presents. She had reshaped my identity into a product line, and now I had the full record of it. I wasn't going to expose her online or call her out in front of family. That would have made it about noise. I was going to do it the same way she had done everything to me, quietly, precisely, permanently. After winter break, I returned to school and immediately got to work. Every file, screenshot, and metadata string I had collected over the holidays was labeled and sorted by date, by design, by Abigail's edits. I wasn't guessing. I had solid proof now. I followed up with my mentor from the design internship. She connected me with a legal consultant who specialized in intellectual property cases involving young artists. I sent over my files and the consultant reviewed everything. She confirmed there were multiple infringements, some direct copies, others barely edited derivatives. She recommended next steps but told me to keep building my own record first. So I did. I started digitizing the original sketches I made back in middle school, the ones Abigail had turned into products. I added traceable watermarks, metadata signatures, and date stamps. Then I filed them under a registered studio name I had set up during my independent study. It wasn't public, but it was official. I opened a small online store using that alias. I uploaded polished versions of those designs, some updated with color, some left simple. I didn't promote anything. The goal wasn't to sell. The goal was to prove authorship and create a digital footprint that would hold up in any dispute. While that was happening, Abigail announced that her store would be featured at an upcoming spring fair. She posted about it like it was a huge milestone. She also submitted a grant application to a Women in Business Foundation. I found her application listed in a public archive. She'd uploaded images as proof of process. One showed a cropped photo of someone sketching. Only the hand was visible. But it was mine. The wrist bracelet, the ring, the sleeve pattern. I recognized all of it from an old photo I'd taken for my internship blog. She'd stolen it too. A comparison sheet and evidence package was anonymously sent to the grant committee. I included timestamps, a copy of the original photo, and the registered copyright of the design she'd used. 2 weeks later, her grant application was removed. A notice went out saying her vendor spot at the fair was under investigation for originality concerns. Abigail posted a vague story on her store's website about online trolls and jealous copycats. She didn't name anyone, just ranted about people who attack women-led success out of envy. I didn't reply. I kept working. Around that time, I submitted one of my updated pieces to the campus magazine under my full name. The editor featured it in the spring edition, and my professor chose it as the cover art. He invited me to speak on a creative roundtable hosted by a local gallery. My studio alias and website were listed in the announcement. When the panel was shared on social media, Abigail's best friend reposted the flyer with a confused caption. "This looks like Abby's stuff." That comment stayed up for an hour before it was deleted. But it had already been seen. That was the first public crack. Quiet, but visible. I kept collecting more. I gathered invoices from my online store that proved which designs were mine first. I pulled layer histories from my design software to show how each piece evolved from a rough sketch to a finished product. I printed copies and kept them stored in a binder. One night, I received a call from my mom. She said Abigail had been acting off, less talkative, seemed distracted. Then she mentioned someone had filed a complaint with a copyright board against Abigail's store. I kept my voice calm. I said maybe it was just burnout. She told me I should reach out to Abigail. I said I'd think about it. I didn't. Instead, I uploaded a decoy sketch into a shared cloud folder Abigail still had access to from when she'd shown me her materials over break. It was a made-up design I created specifically as bait. I embedded a hidden watermark and gave it a Felina and made it look like a draft version of a new tracker. 2 days later, that exact sketch, with a few minor edits, showed up in Abigail's new spring prep pack, right there on her site. Same shape, same spacing, same structure. She hadn't just reused my past ideas. She was still watching, still stealing. And now I had proof in real time. Abigail uploaded the decoy sketch with almost no changes, same layout, same color palette, same file structure. That confirmed everything. My legal contact reviewed the evidence and advised that it was time to escalate. I sent a cease and desist letter through my registered studio name. Every document was attached, side-by-side comparisons, metadata, design logs, and screenshots from the cloud folder she accessed. She didn't respond directly. Instead, she called our mom crying, claiming someone was sabotaging her business and stealing her work. Our mom called me later that evening, confused and upset. I listened, asked calm questions. What was taken? When did it happen? Which designs were involved? I didn't admit anything. I let her talk. The same week, the organizers of the spring fair sent out an email announcing that Abigail's vendor slot had been revoked due to originality concerns. Her name was removed from the vendor list, and the announcement page was updated without her brand. She pulled all her products offline the next day and posted a statement on her blog. It was long and vague, about how artists sometimes need space to regroup and realign with their vision. She called it an artistic pause and promised something new soon. While she paused, I kept moving. I submitted 5 of my original designs, each one with full development timelines and digital protection layers, to an art startup incubator's annual showcase. The submission required proof of originality. I included it all. My work was accepted, and my studio was added to the official lineup of emerging talent for that year. Abigail tried to rebrand. New store name, new color scheme, but the same style underneath. She posted teaser graphics with generic captions about creativity and personal evolution, but people weren't buying it anymore. I had stored everything, copies of her old website, listings from both brands, file timestamps, and the metadata trail. I even printed it all and filed it in a binder. A notary certified the dates. I had third-party confirmations from both my professor and the copyright consultant. The record couldn't be flipped. She tried one more time. A giveaway campaign on her store's old social media account. The post promised free digital products to 3 winners. But the comment section was full of screenshots, side-by-side comparisons of her work and mine. People tagged my studio page underneath. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, I received an email from the incubator inviting me to speak at their spring showcase as a featured guest. They'd seen my work, reviewed my story, and wanted to highlight it as a case study in design ownership. That invitation opened new doors. Young artists started following my studio. A few reached out to ask how to protect their own ideas. Some of the names in my inbox were former collaborators of Abigail's. One afternoon, a classmate mentioned Abigail had left a message with her. She wanted to talk, to clear the air. I ignored it. I didn't block her. I just didn't reply. The air was already clear. She knew what she did. I had nothing left to explain. The silence got louder. Her store stayed offline. Her posts stopped. The people who used to tag her now tagged me. A few of her regular customers quietly followed my shop. One even placed an order and left a review saying, "Glad to support the original." By the end of the semester, my dad called. He asked if I'd come home for the summer, said Abigail was struggling and maybe I could help her find focus again. I told him I'd come, but not for her. I returned home that summer as the helpful daughter, someone willing to support the family and keep the peace. That's what I let them think. In reality, I was there to finish what I started. Abigail didn't greet me when I arrived. She stayed in her room for the first few days, giving vague excuses to skip dinner or leave early for meetings. There were no meetings. Her phone barely lit up. The house felt tense. Our parents moved carefully, watching what they said. Meals were quiet. Even the usual background music was turned off. Everything was toned down, like they were waiting for something to happen. One night over dinner, Abigail brought up her brand. She called it a reflection period, claimed she was exploring new directions and stepping away from ego-driven creativity. I asked if she wanted help revisiting her rebrand. She gave a short no. I smiled and asked if she still had access to the shared folders from before. She said she hadn't looked at them in a while. Later that week, while helping clear out storage boxes in the attic, I found one of my old sketchbooks stuffed between seasonal decorations. Half the pages were ripped out. Others were scribbled over with new designs layered on top of my originals. On the last page, taped to the corner, was a printed version of one of my published pieces from the incubator showcase. Dated, signed. I didn't say a word. I took it downstairs and handed it to my father during breakfast prep. He flipped through it slowly. His fingers paused on each page, one after the other. When he reached the final one, he just stared. No comments, no questions. But he didn't close the book. After that, my mother started acting differently. She began asking small questions about my portfolio, wanted to see my site, sat quietly at the dining table scrolling through my work on her tablet, watched me closely when I sketched out logo concepts in my notebook. She didn't say much, but she was seeing it. Abigail hosted a networking brunch a few days later. It was at a downtown cafe with a patio. She invited other local creators, small business owners, and a couple of bloggers. I wasn't invited, but 2 of the people who attended, former collaborators of hers, reached out to me the next day. Both asked if I'd be open to reviewing their brand strategy and providing feedback. A week later, I hosted my own event, a design showcase at a co-working gallery in town. I invited young artists, small creators, and some professionals from the incubator. A few of Abigail's former contacts showed up. They walked the floor, browsed my displays, and stayed until closing. Several of them made quiet comments about how familiar my aesthetic felt. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My name was on the wall. My work was framed, cataloged, and time-stamped. My designs were original, protected, and mine. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about clarity. My goal was never to humiliate her. I just wanted my work back. And now I had it on paper, in print, in public. Near the end of the summer, my mom asked if I'd be open to helping rebrand her boutique. Said she needed a new logo and some packaging mock-ups. I agreed. But I sent her an invoice, itemized, professional. She reviewed it, asked no questions, and sent the payment in full. The next few days were silent between me and Abigail. No sarcastic comments, no attempts to provoke. She barely looked at me. At meals, she kept her head down. She didn't say a word when I pulled out my sketch pad or took meetings in the living room. The shift was done. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't exposed her in front of the family. I'd simply created something real and left her with nothing to copy. That summer, while my parents tiptoed between silence and suspicion, I focused on making sure Abigail wouldn't be able to rebuild what she'd lost. I booked a meeting with the same entrepreneurship fund that had once dropped her after the grant fallout. This time, I brought a complete portfolio, documents, legal verifications, and endorsements from 2 gallery coordinators who had featured my work. They approved me for both funding and mentorship. The same resources Abigail used to lie about, I now had in writing, under my own business name. I didn't post anything online. I didn't even tell my parents the full details. I simply mentioned I might stay in the nearby city a bit longer for design-related opportunities. They assumed I meant a summer internship. In reality, I had already secured early admission into a competitive design program at a university nearby, one I'd applied to without anyone's help. Around that time, Abigail started showing up again in the local creative circles. She launched a mentorship program for young, inspired artists, offering brand guidance and growth strategies. Her website had stock images, vague testimonials, and recycled taglines. One of the private schools she pitched to had ties with my old boarding program. I reached out, discreetly, and passed along files documenting her history of IP violations. A week later, the school quietly pulled out of talks with her. She brought it up at dinner, complaining that some people didn't appreciate real growth. No one asked for details. At a family cookout a few days later, my younger cousin was flipping through a stack of framed prints in Abigail's room. He stopped at one and asked, "Why does this one have your name on it?" Everyone turned. Abigail mumbled something about inspiration. I replied calmly, "That's my sketch from 7th grade. It was part of my early portfolio." No one defended her. Our father stayed quiet. Our mother stood up and left the room. The next morning, my mother asked if I was available to handle her boutique's rebrand, something Abigail had been too busy to work on for over a year. I agreed and sent her a proper quote. She reviewed it, nodded, and transferred the deposit that afternoon. Abigail overheard the conversation. She left the house later that evening without saying where she was going. Our dad later mentioned Abigail had said she needed time to reevaluate her path. No one asked where she went. While she was gone, I sorted through the last boxes in the attic. Hidden beneath a pile of holiday decorations were 3 of my old sketch folders. Most pages had been ripped out, but enough remained to confirm they were mine. I scanned them, organized them by date, and printed a booklet of the work, combined with digital entries and timestamps. I sealed it in an envelope and left it in the kitchen drawer with a note: "What you missed." Move-in day came earlier than anyone expected. I didn't ask for help. My apartment key was already in hand. Course access, orientation, and internship onboarding were scheduled. That night, my parents called. They didn't press for details. They just wished me luck and asked me to keep them updated, if I had time. A few weeks later, a package showed up in my dorm mailbox. One of the old sketchbooks I thought had been destroyed. Its pages had been taped back together. No note, no return address. I didn't say anything. I placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk, and I didn't open it again.